All right, we've got one final session from the big stage today, and it's going to be exciting. Our next panel features the world's leaders in insurance who will be driving change in the InsurTech industry over the next decade. Tom Wilson is the chairman and CEO of Allstate, and Michael Tipsord is the chairman, president, and CEO of State Farm. Michael and Tom lead the two largest property and casualty insurance companies in the United States. We're so delighted to have them on the stage together with us today. And to moderate the conversation is from CNBC, it's Kayla Tausche. Welcome to the stage.
No. Thank you so much, Eric, for that introduction. No one told me there was going to be a teleprompter here. That would make my job much easier. Thank you for that. And thanks to these gentlemen for joining us for this capstone discussion at the end of a very fruitful day here at the FinTech Ideas Festival. Insurance is an industry that you normally think of as a very established one, where the economics are fixed. And so I want to start from a very broad perspective, 30,000 feet. Where is innovation happening in insurance? And Michael, I'll start with you.
Okay. All right. So Before we get into that, I promise I'll get to that. I wondered why we were this session, the last session of the day. And after the last conversation you have, I think I've come to a conclusion as to why. As hard as the challenges you all face, it's going to be comforting to know that Tom and I are facing even tougher challenges. So I think we're here for the sort of the relief for everybody else that the challenges we have are even tougher when you hear the conversation that just happened. So to your point, when you think about innovation, when you think about disruption, you always start with what are the reasons why it happens? What are the causes for it? And so you start with what's going to attract capital. You start with where are inefficiencies? How can the customer experience actually be improved? What are the ways in which you can actually take steps out of the process? And where can technology enable all that? So you start there, and then you juxtapose that against our business, our industry. And to your point, it's a very mature industry. It has a very large industry from an economic standpoint. You also look at the fact that it's really been about incremental change. Throughout our history, really hasn't been transformational change that's occurred. And the differentiation really comes from execution. And then you lay on top of that, it's heavily dependent upon data and the analytics that go along with that. And when you think about that, and you juxtapose that against where that innovation actually occurs, you step back and say, this is an industry that's ripe for innovation, ripe for disruption. And then to the question of sort of where that's going to happen, it's hard to imagine an element of our business model that won't be subject to disruption. You think about wherever cognitive capabilities are actually important and where innovation is coming there, wherever experience-based learning matters and the innovation that occurs there. And so there's really not any element of our business model that I don't think is subject to disruption. But what you also have is we have the added nuance. What you just heard in the conversation about Lyft is that the very risks that underlie the products and services that we offer, there's disruption that's attacking those as well. And so the need for what we do is being brought into question. So it really cuts across all dimensions of our business, and it even goes to the underlying reason for the product and service that we offer.
Tom, it helps to have scale. It helps to be one of the big players in this industry to make the business model work. Do you feel pressure from startups, from outside technologists? And how do you work to combat that from within to make sure that your business model is evolving the way it needs to?
I mean, do I feel pressure? No, I think we have the basis to compete. I think we have the skills and capabilities to compete, and not just in insurance. So let me start there. Let's use autonomous vehicles as an example. You hear a lot about autonomous cars. I think that's interesting, but it's really about changing it's a tip of the iceberg. It's really about the whole personal transportation system. isn't just about autonomous cars driving themselves. Obviously, if cars drive themselves, then we don't have anybody we need to insure if they don't get in any accidents. But that's a component of it, but it's tip of the iceberg. The other, as you heard from John, he was talking about ride sharing. Car sharing is a whole different business, different logistics, but it's going to change. So to Michael's point about where are the economic dislocations, the personal transportation industry is going to change dramatically in America, whether we like it or you like it or not, and it's going to affect not just our business, but your business. So let me give you some math. $4 trillion in hardware, 240 million cars, $4 trillion tied up in hardware, $2 trillion a year to run that hardware. Capacity utilization, 3%. Peak capacity utilization, peak hours, 34%. 70% of the time, one person in the car, not four. If you're a banker, you would never lend a manufacturing company money on that kind of capacity utilization. If you were a manufacturer and you own the system, you'd change it tomorrow. You'd shut that puppy down, you'd send everybody home for 2 years, you'd come back and you'd run it much more efficiently. It's not that easy, right? Because it's an economically dispersed system. So there's insurers like us, there's people who own cars, there's gas stations, there's all kinds of people who are tied into it, but it's all going to change. And it's going to change because a 20% improvement in the cost of ownership is a 5% increase in average household income in America. It's $250 per month per household and $60,000. It's a huge improvement. So it's going to happen. How it's going to happen, the transition, all kinds of stuff. So we're working on, like, what do we do about that? There's a bunch of startups who think they can do some stuff, and maybe they'll be successful and we'll lose. I don't know. But
or you'll buy them.
Or we'll buy them, I suppose. What we're doing is we're focused on three elements. One is we have a leg in as insurers to the customer relationship because we can give them a more accurate price. Because when we're doing price, if we know exactly how you drive, if your car is connected to us, we can do that. Two, we're going to make the driving experience better. Three, we're going to help them get some of that money that comes from saving costs in the system. So there's three ways that we're approaching it. So will other people come into it? Yes, but we're not limiting ourselves to saying, oh, my auto insurance is going away. What are we going to do next? We're like, let's take this customer relationship and let's figure out how to compete. So we're going to end up competing with Google, Apple, all the OEs. Everybody wants a piece of that.
I mean, you guys are in the business of assigning probability to a risk occurring. In a world with driverless cars, is there zero risk in the auto industry?
So I'll start on that, and then Tom can come in. So people have a tendency to jump to the end state. So the completely autonomous, self-driving, no pedals, no steering wheel, right? They jump to that end state. I think the dialogue about this topic is actually better served if we talk about the steps along the way. And so there's technology improvements that are occurring right now that have. And our industry has long been supporters of improved highway safety, improved vehicle safety. And it has the real benefit of reducing physical injury, personal injury. So this is something that we support as an industry, that we're involved in the testing associated with this. Depends upon what data you look at. The data that we see most regularly says that over 90% of automobile accidents are attributable to human error, is what they say. And so in theory, and the technology exists to make this happen. So in theory, you could eliminate all of those. But then when you look to some of the guesses and the projections, and you heard some earlier in the space of lift, but there's varying assessments in terms of how big the magnitude is going to be. You have at the one extreme, up to 80% of private passenger automobile insurance goes away by 2050, is one extreme. There's another very credible source says that over the next 30 years, you're going to have continued increase. And so you step back and you ask yourself, why? Why could it be so varied? You start with, this was shocking to me. The average age of the vehicle on the U.S. highway right now is over 11 years. And hardly any of those have the autonomous capability that we're talking about. So you've got the existing fleet that you have to work through. There's going to be adoption issues. So you heard the sense of shared ownership. Who all here shares well with respect to their car? I don't. I don't even share with my kids. I don't even want to share my car with my kids. So there's going to be this human behavior, this human adoption issue is going to be an issue as well that will have a consequence. There's also going to be public policy issues. There will be a consequence for multiple downstream industries if automobile accidents go away. And all you have to do is look at who we write checks to associated with automobile accidents. So the car manufacturers, the body shops, the glass shops, the parts suppliers, healthcare providers, attorneys. All of those industries will be impacted by what these changes in the elimination of automobile accidents. So there's a lot of unknowns, but I don't think anybody should question, does the technology exist? I think absolutely the technology exists, but you're going to have these other issues that are going to have a consequence in terms of what the ultimate effect and impact will be.
Tom, you mentioned how much data you get from an autonomous vehicle or a smarter vehicle on the road. What about consumer data? What additional data do you have available to you from consumers, and how do they feel about the fact that that data is being used to make decisions about them?
So we have 1,000,001 cars connected to us right now that we're pulling data from on every day. We get 700 million miles a month, and we get a lot of it. We get some of it through cell phones. So we know, time, spatial, where you're at, what you're doing, how fast you're going, how long you stop. We have all kinds of data. And we don't actually know everything to do with that data yet, but we know there's a lot of ways we can make our customers' experience better. And that's one of the things we're trying to figure out is how can we make it better. And if we do that, we think they'll pay us. Even if we don't have to pay to protect them because they're not getting as many accidents, then they can pay us for doing something else. The research always says, oh, they don't want to do it until you say, you could save, 10 to 30%. They hit the bid like that. Boom, they go. Because they're used to it. The advantage we have, and I think this is probably, I don't know the examples in everybody's business here for it, but we have a way into the car. So we have competitors who sell this, who say, hey, it's $19 a month, or it's $100 and you get a year free or something like that. And then if you get that information, you can get more accurate insurance from Michael, or you can do something else with it. You can get free coupons and rewards and stuff like that. Ours is there's less friction because we just say, we'll give you cheaper insurance. So we're using that relationship with the customer to get in and build on it. So while there are some startups out there who are very clever people, they got good stuff going on, but if you look at their penetration and how many customers they have versus the number of customers we have, and we've been at this about 5 years, and we didn't really step it up for the first 3, we could grow exponentially from where we're at because we already have a relationship. And I think that's true with all this FinTech stuff. Like, what they have are ideas, what we have are customers. We have to make sure we have as good ideas for our customers, and then we'll win.
But will there be a point where, say, someone's insuring a second home and you verify that it's a second home because the lights don't get turned on often? Right. I mean, how do you use the data from all of the connected devices that are coming into your system?
So the Internet of Things and the sensor technology and everything that can bring. And so when you think about all of that extra information that you have, you start with, you can better understand what that risk is. At the very base level, you can understand what the utilization of that property is. You also have the opportunity for loss mitigation. So imagine a scenario, connected home, where you have motion detection capabilities and the oven's left on. You can actually have the conversation that says that oven needs to be turned off. So you can do things like that. You can have water sensor capability, where as soon as that water shows up someplace that it shouldn't, you can have a message that goes to an automatic shutoff. So the overall loss mitigation that can occur will be very helpful. To Tom's point, price always matters. It's at the top of the list in terms of what the important factor is in the decision that they make. The better you can understand that risk, the better you can actually match price to risk, and therefore charge a sort of more appropriate price for that particular customer, which they generally welcome.
Yeah, I think data and analytics, it kind of gives me a headache sometimes because it's sort of everywhere and everything, and it could be all things. And so we're obviously out. We have a bunch of data scientists. I'm sure most of you do too, and we're building them all around the world. They're getting good at it. Our biggest challenge is getting that the data insights embedded into our operating processes, and then getting the people who run those operating processes to actually trust the data and actually use it. So you can have really smart people give you the insights, and you got somebody who's been working for you for 20 years and is not inclined to do anything about it, doesn't help you. So it's back to that transformation. So it's always easy to talk about, geez, we have all this data, we'll do all this stuff, we'll give you a driver score, we'll do all this kind of stuff for you, and it'd be great. But in the meantime, I got 11 years worth of business we got to do. And that's really a cultural change thing of getting our team to understand the power of data when they're not used to doing it.
Yeah, earlier in the session, Aaron Levy spoke about sort of how you actually have to transform the business. You can't just take a digital app and lay it on top. You've got to fundamentally rethink the business as a whole. And this gets back to the point about transformation, how we transition from the world that we have today, and we have to serve all those customers today to what that future will be. And it gets to data is at the middle of almost all of this, and most importantly, the analytics associated with it.
But it has huge implications for, I don't know how many read the McKinsey report where basically every job goes away. But you can start to see it in our business. So when you have a hailstorm, your car gets all dinged up, you get a bunch of little dings in it. And we count them. I don't know how you guys count them. We call them quarter, nickel, dime, about their size. Too many quarters, too many nickels, and we replace the thing. A few dimes, and we pop them out. I've tried to do it. You count them. It's really a pain. You don't know if you counted it. There's hundreds on there. So you have a high turnover when it goes to the body shop. A lot of body shops call and say, hey, you didn't tell us how many dents there were. And so it's really complicated process. 16 cameras, 550 pictures, 90 seconds, 100% accuracy. Beam it right to the body shop. Customer gets a digital printout. They can do that afterwards. Job goes away. Don't need that person anymore. So how do you integrate that digital activity into your business, in your business model? What do you do for your employees who used to do that? And today they don't do it. You just send them home. And if we all send them all home, who's out there to buy? So there's some significant issues on the whole data and analytics business.
Yep.
What about other technologies beyond data? That seems like the biggest single factor driving change in your business. Blockchain, microinsurance, are they trends or do they have staying power in what you do?
So the blockchain, that's the very question I came here to get answered, and I haven't gotten an answer yet to that. When I talk to Jenny, it sounds like it is real, right? And when you look at the principles, the concept underneath it, step back and say there should be something there. The machine learning and artificial intelligence are other avenues that there really is application. So when Tom talks about the camera technology, if you carry that to its extreme, it's not just counting the number of dimples because of hail, it's actually determining what that loss estimate is. And that experience base that the machines can have as they learn, as they have their own individual experience. You can imagine what some of the possibilities are. The notion of robo-advising is another one that I would point to. Again, back to my earlier point, anything that's experience-based, it is subject to disruption and innovation because you can embed all of that experiential learning into that system and actually bring more factors to bear to make that decision.
And Tom, how much does that improve the user experience then? Because filing a claim for something is such a laborious task, or at least it had been in the past. Can you make all of the processes simpler and make the user experience more enjoyable so that people don't view it as sort of a necessary evil?
Oh yeah, you can cut tons of time out of everything you do. Anything that requires recognition of data, pattern recognition, that kind of stuff, machines can do that stuff. So it'll cut a lot of expense out. But I think the trick for us is what do we replace that with? Right, and I think it's an issue for business in America that we have to start figuring out how we do a better job of creating prosperity in America. I think this is probably not the right group to say it to, but I think Milton Friedman was wrong when he said you should do one thing and one thing only, and that's drive shareholder value. I don't think that's what society requires of us. I think society created corporations for a reason, and that reason is to create prosperity. We take ideas and people and resources and processes, and we create good stuff out of it. And if we do that well, we make money for our shareholders, but we also help our employees and that kind of stuff. As we head into this digital world and it starts to change everything, I think the requirements on business to help people transition so that all these jobs that go away as a result of improving effectiveness and efficiency, we figure out how to transition our economy into something else. This is related to unions, but it's the same concept. Henry Ford was touring a factory with Walter Reuther, and I obviously wasn't there. But Walter Reuther was a UAW guy, and they were just starting to put robots in. And Henry Ford said to Reuther, he said, "Walter, how are you going to unionize my robots?" And Reuther said, "Henry, how are they going to buy your cars?" And the point is, as we use digital stuff, as we take jobs out of the system, particularly in the service biz and financial services, how do we create opportunities to redeploy people? I think it'll be on the things Michael was talking about. It'll be about empathy, it'll be about helping them get through the process, as opposed to I'm collecting information. There's no margin in collecting information.
So the technology should be a vehicle that augments that human experience. That's how we should be thinking about. The differentiation can come from the humanness that we lay on top of these self-help capabilities and all these other experiences, and position the customer so that it's in the time and manner of their choice. So you get back to the notion of omni-channel. It should come back to empower that customer, always have a relentless focus on the entirety of the experience that they have, and how do you make that stand out? So in an earlier session, Sebastian talked about the fact that disruption would occur when the customer actually is overwhelmed by that new experience. They ultimately decide what it is that constitutes true disruption.
But what if that human interaction can be replaced by a chatbot, like Satya Nadella was talking about earlier? Do you still need that human? Do you get beyond the need for that?
So the customer is always going to be the one that answers that question. So again, I believe there are ways in which that chatbot can augment what that human is doing. It's going to change the nature of what they do. For us, it'll help in terms of the turnover of our workforce, the learning cycle, the amount of training that's required for them to be proficient is minimized significantly when you have these other augmented capabilities that are occurring.
You guys both work in an industry where change has, over the last century, been very incremental.
Yes.
But now it's becoming quite rapid. How do you adjust to that? And this will be our final question.
You want to start on that one?
How do I adjust to it? You just kind of comes at your way. It's not like you wake up one day and say, "I think I'll start changing faster." But I guess the way I would say the biggest thing for us has been change of mindset. So it's to think more broadly about what we do. Sometimes you have to use words to do that because we kind of all define ourselves by words, but we don't think of ourselves as an insurance company. We think of ourselves as protecting people from life's uncertainties. Lots of ways, lots of things we could do with that. So I think actually an example of success would be here, like if Google and Amazon are at a conference, is somebody putting up a slide there that says MasterCard, State Farm, U.S. Bank are going to get into your business. Like, we got as much right to be in the businesses they're in as they got as much right to be in our business. Now, maybe we don't have all the skills and capabilities, but they don't know our business either. So Google tried to get in the insurance business, and they shut it down. Doesn't mean they won't try again, but I think as it relates to change, we're just trying to think broadly about what we can do, what resources and we can do for our customers, and then hopefully we'll win.
Yeah, so never lose sight of what your mission is. And so similar to what Tom's, our mission is about helping people. And you never lose sight of what that is. Now, the ways in which you go about that, relationships, the ways in which those relationships are created and nurtured, those are changing. But the core of what you do, you never lose sight of that, and you never lose sight of your orientation towards growth. Better, helping more and more people, helping them in more and more ways is a way that you deal with that. And we're constantly dealing with the collision of our people wanting certainty, but the need for us to be more agile, the need for us to create optionality, And what you ultimately have to do in the minds of the people that who you're leading, you have to enable them to see the value that's created for them by taking this approach.
I would say there's one other thing we do too, which is try to ignore economics, which is not natural to me. So that in our connected car space, I haven't done a DCF on it, and we're spending tons of money. I'm not going to do a DCF on it. I know I got to do it, so I'm just thinking like, it's a venture fund. The money goes away, it goes away. But I'm not. If I try to do an economic analysis on it, it most certainly will tell me with the way we discount cash flows that I should do something short term on behalf of our shareholders, as opposed to just roll the dice and